Hello everybody. So I've been thinking, and I've come to the conclusion that we need a fan base name. So from now on, you guys are gonna be the Pixlets. What's up, Pixlet Nation? Today, in this video, we're gonna be ranking fruits. Because that's what I do now, I guess. As you can see, behind me, I have a tier list, and I'm going to be organizing 50 different fruits on this tier list based on their accuracy as a fruit. Now, you probably have a few questions. Pixel, what does it mean if a fruit is accurate? How do you determine the accuracy of a fruit? Why are your magnets so degraded, and why is the L in upside down 7? I'm working on it, man. No, a fruit's accuracy is determined by, like vibes, like how much does it like feel like a fruit? I don't know. Like an apple, that's a fruit, but like a tomato, that's a fruit, but that's not a fruit. So without further ado, let's get into my most flavorful video yet and rank fruits by their accuracy. Obviously, we're gonna start with the apple, the poster child of all fruits. I think this feels the most like a fruit out of any fruit ever. It's the fruitiest fruit to ever fruit, so it has to be S tier. They come in all shapes, sizes, and colors. You have red apples, green apples, yellow apples. You probably have blue apples. I mean, you have blue bananas. Did you know there's blue bananas? I didn't know there were blue bananas, so I wouldn't be surprised if there's blue apples. But regardless, an apple feels the most like a fruit than anything on this list. One fruit that I would argue is as important as apple is the pear. In fact, I'd be willing to put it alongside the apple in S tier. The problem is that I don't think most people would agree with that. And it's not that this tier list is based on the general opinion. In fact, I think you're gonna disagree horrendously with most of what I have to say. It's that I just feel like I have to bend to the populace this one time, but just this once. So pear gets A tier. Okay, those are two like very fruity fruits. I wanna throw a wrench into the mix, and let's do coconut next. Coconut. Cocoa nut. You're telling me that's a fruit? And it gets worse because what you eat inside of it isn't called the flesh. As weird as I think it is to call what you eat inside a fruit the flesh of the fruit, that's not what you call a coconut. What you eat from a coconut is called the meat. What? I guess that's like somewhat related to the word flesh, but it feels so much worse for some reason. But wait, there's more, because these things don't have juice, they have water? Cocoa nut that you eat the meat from and drink the water from? That's not a fruit. F tier. They're also hairy and hard as a rock. I could go on and on about coconut, but we don't have time. Let's move on. Pulling it back a little, we have grapes. These feel like a fruit. Not as much as an apple, obviously, but I think I'd be willing to put them in S tier. It's just that they can get turned into wine, and wine doesn't really feel like the product of a fruit. Additionally, there's just something missing from them to give them the same fruitiness that apple and pear have. However, my personal feelings for them override that, so I'm gonna put them in A tier. What about peaches? I think the only part of these that doesn't feel like a fruit is the pit in the middle. But that's not enough to discount it, and everything else about them feels so strongly like a fruit that I'm gonna give it S tier. It's sweet, it's soft, and it's fuzzy, which is a weird trait, but it kind of works for me. Cherries are another really solid pick. As much as I don't like cherry-flavored things, cherries themselves are pretty fruity. Not as much as a peach or an apple, but about as much as grapes, I would say. So I'm gonna give cherries A tier. Okay, let's talk about what you probably clicked on this video for. There are some fruits that are technically fruits that are socially classified as vegetables, but they almost kind of feel like fruits. I think the most obvious example of this is the tomato, right? Like, this is a vegetable, but it's not a vegetable. But it feels like a vegetable, but it also feels like a fruit. I think tomato is the example that gets brought up the most when you say, hey, did you know that this is actually a fruit? And so because of that, I think I'd actually put it pretty high on the list, like maybe even in B tier. The problem, again, is that most people don't consider tomato a fruit. Even when people say, hey, did you know that tomato is technically a fruit? People still kind of reject that idea and classify it as a vegetable. And I can't deny that it does give off vegetable vibes in a way. So I'm gonna put it in C tier just because it kind of feels like it's in the middle. I'd love to put it higher, but just because of social pressure put on the tomato, it doesn't feel as much like a fruit as it should. So really, this is your guys' fault. I wanted to put him higher. I'm a supporter of tomato. But because you guys just want to keep him in a box, this is where he has to go. Bell peppers feel similar to tomatoes, but they're less regarded as a fruit than tomato is. However, they don't necessarily feel like a vegetable either. I'm gonna put these in C tier as well. It's not approaching vegetable enough for me, but it's also not approaching fruit as much as tomato is. But I don't think it's deserving of D tier. What I do think is deserving of D tier is the chili pepper. Now, the thing is, it's not in D tier because it feels like a vegetable more than a fruit. It just doesn't feel like it belongs in either category. Bell pepper is in C tier because it feels more like a vegetable than a fruit, but chili pepper is in D tier not because it feels more like a vegetable, just because it feels less like a fruit. Now I want to look at the inverse of these. Fruit that is considered a fruit that feels more like a vegetable. The first of these is the avocado. I wouldn't be willing to deny that this is a fruit, but I also don't really feel like it's a fruit. Something about the texture, both the inside and outside texture, does not communicate fruit vibes to me. Also, like, guacamole does not feel like a fruit product. Like, when you mash up a fruit, you get juice. You don't get guacamole. C tier. Then we got olives, and I couldn't find a lot of images of these where they weren't attached to leaves. And you're gonna tell me that that's a fruit? Fruits and vegetables both feel like plants. We're not gonna deny that. But I will say that vegetables feel like they belong on a plant more than a lot of fruits do. So the fact that olives are so closely correlated, I mean, I know why, right? You extend the olive branch or whatever. But the fact that olives are so closely linked to the plant itself makes it hard for me to make them feel like a fruit. It's not just that though, it's also just kind of the vibe of them doesn't really feel like a fruit. They just smell and taste like a vegetable. And I haven't tried a lot of the fruits on this list, so I'm not trying to let taste interfere with where I rank them. But for olives, it feels just like it's a knock against them. D tier. They feel about as much like a fruit as chili peppers do. Eggplant is not a fruit. I don't care what the scientists say, that's not a fruit. I mean, if anything, it feels like a squash, and squash does not feel like a fruit. I guess I might as well do squash. Squash is F tier. Squash does not feel like a fruit in the slightest. That is a vegetable if I've ever seen one. And so eggplant feels a little bit less like a squash, but not enough for me to rank it anywhere higher than D tier. Like, it feels like squash if squash was trying a little, like a knockoff squash. Also the name, I already mentioned that plants feel like they belong more with vegetables than fruits, but also eggplant? What a strange name for something that's not even closely related to eggs. I just realized we don't have anything in B tier. So let's fix that. You guys might kill me, but I've never had a persimmon before. Persimmons feel like a fruit through and through. There's not really anything about them that's making me feel like they deserve to go low on the list. The problem is that they haven't really established themselves as a fruit as much as anything in A or S tier. So B tier. Okay, what about melons? Well, let's start with cantaloupe. If you handed me a bowl of cantaloupe, firstly, I'd praise you for the savior that you are, and then secondly, I would definitely acknowledge that it's a fruit. It's bright orange, it's super squishy and juicy, and it's really sweet. And that feels like a fruit. A lot. The thing is that the outside of them does not resemble a fruit at all. It looks like not even a vegetable. I don't even know what that looks like. They say not to judge a book by its cover, but I'm gonna judge a book by its cover. I love cantaloupe, but I gotta keep it in check, and I think that it deserves B tier just because of how it looks. Kind of in the same boat, you have honeydew. The thing is, it doesn't look like a fruit on the inside as much as a cantaloupe does. It has the same texture and juiciness that cantaloupe does, but it's green. And also, it tastes slightly more vegetable-y than a cantaloupe. What am I talking? Look at what's behind me right now. What am I talking? It's so similar to cantaloupe, but it just feels like a step down. So I'm gonna put it in C tier. The most melony melon of them all is watermelon. Right out the gate, watermelon is A tier. Does it look like a fruit on the inside? Absolutely. Does it look like a fruit on the outside? No, it looks more like a vegetable, but cantaloupe doesn't even look like a vegetable, so I think that raises watermelon, if anything. That doesn't make any sense, but it feels like it's more in league with fruit as a concept than cantaloupe or honeydew is. Man, the logic on this list is just non-existent. I also want to acknowledge that watermelon flavored things, as good as they taste, I mean, I love watermelon flavored things, do not taste like watermelon. If you made me try like a watermelon flavored lollipop and then said, point at the fruit that tastes like that, I wouldn't point at watermelon, but I would point at guava. That looks like it should taste like watermelon flavor. This is another one that I've never tried, but honestly, I think that's gonna help it here. It looks like something that tastes like watermelon flavor. And even the outside of it isn't something I'd 100% deny as being a fruit. A tier, because it almost feels more like a fruit than watermelon. I just don't think it goes anywhere near S tier. Pineapple does not look like a fruit. But despite that, I think it goes in A tier. Yeah, I'm biased. And yeah, pineapple might have bribed me a little. But it's an A tier because I said it's an A tier. What are you gonna do about it? Continuing the theme of tropical fruits, we have papayas. This one also just feels like a knockoff squash. But less so than eggplant, so I'm gonna put it in C tier. I think the name is doing a lot of heavy lifting. Papaya feels like a fruit name. It just kind of looks like a weird off-brand squash. Especially when compared to eggplant, I feel like the name alone just has to put it a tier above it. Mango is another fruity fruit. It's just a really solid pick when you're going for what a fruit might be. Both the inside and outside give off the vibe of a fruit. I think the fact that the outside of it is like a pretty intense gradient helps a lot. You got red, yellow, sometimes orange, and then green. And those are all fruit colors, and they're all present on the outside of this thing. Yeah, that's a fruit. A tier. Then we got kiwi. What the hell? How did you end up here? Then we got kiwi. This is a strange one because its color and the inside of it doesn't feel like a fruit as much as it should to me, and the outside of it definitely doesn't feel like a fruit. But I'm in a forgiving mood, so I'll put kiwi in B tier. Even though it's brown and green and weirdly textured, I think its flavor and juiciness is enough to move it past everything over here. There's a fruit I've neglected to mention until now that you've probably noticed I've neglected to mention until now, and that fruit is of course banana. Banana is a fruit that I would be willing to put in the top 3. If you ask me to name the 3 most iconic fruit, I would give you apples, pears, and then banana, in that order. The thing is, when I take off my rose-tinted glasses, this doesn't look like a fruit on the inside or the outside. I don't know what I'd expect a fruit to look like, but when I get rid of all my nostalgia and bias, a banana doesn't emanate that. I'd be willing to put it in A tier, but banana next to mango, I feel like mango's way fruitier than banana is, but when I put it next to kiwi, that doesn't feel right either. So I have a solution. Banana tier. It's in between A tier and B tier. That's probably a pretty controversial take that banana isn't in A or S tier, but that's just how I feel. So how do I feel about something like orange? Yeah, that's a fruit. In fact, it's such a fruit that it might come close to beating apple. You're telling me they named a color after this thing? It was that important? Yeah, S tier. Not only does orange really feel like a fruit, but it also has such a unique presence among this roster. Nothing comes close to competing with it. It's such a unique and viable fruit that I think it just is absolutely deserving of S tier. While we're at it, we might as well do the other citrusy fruits, so let's do lemon and lime. I'm gonna get flamed for saying this, but these don't feel like fruits to me. I mean, they do, but not nearly as much as anything in S or A tier. And I think it comes down to their flavor. Lemon's more iconic as a fruit than lime, but it also is more sour than lime. And lime's less sour than lemon, but has a strange other taste in there that doesn't really feel like a fruity flavor. Feel like a fruity flavor. Say that 10 times fast. So I fully understand if you disagree with me on this, but lemon and lime are both B tier. It's mostly the flavor. And I guess if you really want to go there, I could also say that they look almost exactly like oranges on the inside, but just less fruity colors. I don't know. Grapefruit also looks like an orange, but I think I'm willing to put it higher than both lemon and lime. Grapefruit. But a grape is a fruit. So is it fruit? It's called fruit, and you're telling me it's not gonna go in S tier? Does it look even remotely close to a grape? No. Does it taste even remotely close to a grape? No. Do I know why the hell they named it after grapes if neither of those things are true? No. So if someone could find that out for me, I'd appreciate it. Just the fact alone that it's named after a fruit and it still has fruit tacked on at the end, that's such an easy S tier. You're gonna look me in the eyes and tell me that grapefruit is not a fruit? Yeah, okay, buddy, and I'm from Mars. Seriously, don't tell anybody. Actually, while we're at it, let's cover all the other blank fruits. I've never had star fruit, and stars aren't fruit, but the name is just so like magical and wondrous that I feel like it deserves a high placement. I don't really know why it's shaped like that, but I don't really know that the shape discounts it from being a fruit all that much. And the texture certainly looks like a fruit. I'm gonna put it in A tier. Not that I feel strongly called to put it in A tier, but I just feel like it goes there. Then there's dragon fruit. This is not a fruit that came from Earth, right? This feels like a fruit, but it's just so alien and foreign and weird looking. Like, you do not need to be doing all that. Also, dragon fruit? It's just looking for attention at that point, and I'm not gonna give it to it, so B tier. Hey guys, so since recording this video, I've actually tried dragon fruit because I had never had it before recording this video, and I just wanna say, I'm so disappointed. Like, it's not a bad taste, but for looking like that, it tastes so bland. I just, like, it's all glam, no flavor. There's nothing to it. Then there's passion fruit, and I'm sure I've tried this before, one way or another, and I'm sure that it tastes like a fruit, and on the outside, it even looks like a fruit. But the inside looks disgusting. It looks like something laid eggs inside it, like a hive. It's nasty. It's so repulsive that even if it looks and tastes like a fruit, I don't want to grant it that title, so I'm gonna put it in D tier. I don't even want to look at it. It's so gross. Then we got cucumber. No. No. Corn is... Corn? No. Peas are also not fruits. Why are these all here? What are we doing? Pumpkins actually don't feel as much like a vegetable as I thought they would. That doesn't mean they don't feel like a vegetable. They really, really, really feel like a vegetable. But because I was just caught off guard by how I could like kind of see them as a fruit, I'm gonna put them in D tier. Like, squash feels more like a vegetable than a pumpkin. I think it's pumpkin pie, because you have apple pie and huckleberry pie and blueberry pie and blackberry pie, and then pumpkin pie. That might just be the sole reason it's here. Okay, this one is placed where it is entirely on account of my own ignorance and stupidity. But next we have fig. How did I go 20 years of my life thinking these were green? If you had asked me a few months, hell, a week ago, what color figs are, I would have said green, both on the inside and outside. I had no clue they were purple and red. How did I go this long without knowing that? That's entirely my own fault, but because of that, I had expectations for fig that weren't met. And so, honestly, I'm gonna put it lower than I was going to originally, but at the same time, this looks way more fruity than what I envisioned, so I almost have to put it higher than where I was going to put it. I don't know what to do. I feel lost and betrayed, even though it's entirely my own fault. So fig gets C tier. Unlike figs, plums feel purple. The name even gives off kind of a fruity vibe, and the inside doesn't necessarily look non-fruity. It's just, like persimmons, they haven't established themselves as fruity enough for me. The standards are high around here. You gotta work hard, and plum just hasn't worked hard enough. B tier. I feel like lychee can't decide what it wants to do. It's like solid white on the inside, but it looks like a raspberry, but it's hard. And then for some reason, there's just a bean in there. Similar to fig, I don't really know how to feel about this one. But unlike fig, it's not because I had certain expectations. I'm just surprised. C tier. I don't really know what to do with it. On the other hand, I do know what to do with dates, because those are a candlelit dinner at a nice restaurant. Not this wrinkled mess. This just looks like a raisin. That's not a fruit. I mean, yeah, you can't base your appearance off of another fruit when it's out in the sun for too long. You just can't do that. It feels like cheating. And despite the fact that it feels like cheating, it also just doesn't look like a fruit. D tier. D for date. Pomegranates are really good. I've been eating these since I was but a wee lad, and I love how they taste, and they feel like a fruit. The thing is, similar to banana, but not as harshly as banana, when I take off the rose-tinted glasses, something about them rubs me the wrong way. I can't identify what, it's just that something about them doesn't feel like a fruit. So I'm gonna put them in B tier. It hurts me to do it, but I just feel like that's where they go. All right. It's berry time. Let's kick things off with blueberries, which, by the way, are blue. When I established that in the color video, I got so many comments saying, no, blueberries are purple because when you crush them up into yogurt or a smoothie or ice cream, they're purple. So let's follow that path of logic. You're telling me that if you crushed up a red apple and turned it into yellow apple juice, that you would look at that same red apple and tell me, yeah, that's a yellow apple. Can you see why I have trouble believing you? So I'm glad we agree. Blueberries are blue and they feel like a fruit. A tier. Let's move on. Raspberries are not spelled at all how they're pronounced, because what do you mean raspberries? But that doesn't really discount them from feeling as fruity as they do. A tier. Blackberries are raspberries, but if they had a different color and texture, but still felt as much like a berry. A tier. Cranberry is a berry that I'm very familiar with, but doesn't feel like it's as solid of a fruit pick as blueberries, raspberries, or blackberries. Yeah, it's a fruit, and I'm fully willing to acknowledge that it's a fruit, but it's just kind of an underdog when compared to these three. So because of that, I'm gonna put it in B tier. Huckleberry is definitely an underdog, but the name Huckleberry is so, like, fun to say. I think that's just a me thing, but that somehow makes it feel more like a fruit, even if it looks just like red and black blueberries. Into B tier you go. Gooseberries. The only reason I know what these are is because of Witcher 3. They look like grapes mixed with oranges with a pit on the inside. But you know what? They still feel like a fruit. I'm gonna put it in B tier. Cloudberry. Okay, we're just making these up at this point. Not to make 2 video game references in a row, but these kind of look like the infection from Hollow Knight. Am I crazy for saying that? I don't know, man. They look scrumptious, but I've never heard of them before. I'm just gonna toss them in B tier. Strawberries are weirdly named. Strawberry. There's no straw involved with the actual fruit, so I don't know why that's there. But they're also not a berry, I'm pretty sure. But here's the thing. Does that really matter? Does strawberry feel like a berry? Yeah, but I think that's only because it's named strawberry. But does it feel like a fruit? I think absolutely. In fact, I think because it feels less like a berry and more like a fruit, I feel inclined to put it in S tier. And you know what? I like it in S tier. It's the opposite of grapefruit. Grapefruit, fruit, absolutely deserving of S tier. But strawberry, despite being named 2 things that it isn't, has fought so hard and played the game so well that I gotta give it the respect it deserves. What an accomplished player. Strawberry is the definition of pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Blue raspberry does not exist, so I don't know why it's here. And that's it. That's the... Didn't I say there was gonna be 50 fruits? There's only 48 right now, but we've run out of room in the tiers. Which means we need a new tier, but that'd have to go below F tier, and there's a bird in F tier. Introducing, for the first time ever, Super F tier. Mostly everything in this list feels more like a fruit, or less like a fruit, and more like a vegetable. Neither of these feel like a fruit or a vegetable. They're in a league of their own, and not in a good way. Beans. That's a fruit? No. In what world, in what universe are beans a fruit? They don't even feel like a vegetable, so I don't know where to put them. I had to make a whole new tier for these. It's awful, it's terrible, and you might be thinking it can't get any worse. But let me assure you, it can. Cacao? Cacao. You're telling me that when I'm chewing on a Hershey's bar, I'm eating the product of a fruit? No, it's not. I don't care what the science says. I'm rejecting that idea. It's not a fruit. I'm not gonna stand for this. In fact, I'm gonna sit for it. So yeah, that's the video. Thank you for watching.
Oh, it looks nasty. Oh, it looks disgusting. It smells good, but the texture is just disgusting looking. It's like corn kernels. Ew. Cheers. Okay, that actually tastes really good. I just don't like the texture. Like I'm eating like, yeah, like I would love to drink like the juice. It's just that like crunching on, it's like corn kernels. Weird texture.